Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Inga Cotton. I'm the founder and executive director of San Antonio Charter Moms, and it is enrollment season for charter schools, schools of choice in San Antonio. And so we've been featuring leaders of different schools of choice around San Antonio. And I'm so delighted we have a repeat guest. We have Johnston, who's the head of school at Anne Frank Inspire Academy. And he's been our guest in the past to talk about how they were adapting to COVID and giving families flexibility for how they bring their kids back to school or do distance learning. And he's also talked about the inquiry-based learning model that they have at Anne Frank and how families can apply that at home to make learning relevant during the pandemic, which is always a challenge. And but the focus right now is that it is open enrollment season at Anne Frank. So I'm going to pop that up on the screen real quick. And I invited Justin to come and talk to families who might be thinking about Anne Frank as an option for their kids so they can find out more about the school model and find out how to get their kids enrolled. So Justin, thank you so much for joining us again.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you giving us the time to come and talk to you and be able to speak to the families directly. It means a lot.
Yeah. So I wanted to get right to the heart of it, which is if you could talk about like the mission and vision of Anne Frank Inspire Academy, because for some families this may be the first they're hearing about the school. And I just want to mention that we're creating an enrollment guide blog post for SA Charter Moms, and the link is in the description of the video. So if families want to read more, they can go to that. But I want them to hear from you about like the mission and vision of the school.
Yeah, so we are all about reimagining public education, right? And so that is what we set out to do. That is what we try to do on a daily basis. And so we're just constantly trying to find ways that help make education more intentional. And so what we like to kind of focus on is it's not a buffet, right? But we do really dive into getting into what individual students need, what they work. So we want to give as much control as we can to families and as much control as we can to students based off of the age that we're in. So at the elementary, we're reimagining education because we want to keep that curiosity there. A lot of times at the elementary, the curiosity dies, right? And so our goal is that kids leave 5th grade asking questions. And then as they get into that 6th grade, we teach them not only to ask the questions, but also how are they going to go about finding the answers. And then once they walk into that high school, they're really prepared to be able to ask the right questions, find the right information, and then do things with that information. And so it's about building a whole student throughout our entire process.
Yeah, and I think that the like as we go through this conversation and as folks read the things about in the blog about Anne Frank, I think they'll start to appreciate just how different the model is from what you might find in a typical public school setting. And that's what's so exciting about it. It makes, it adds to the range of options that's available in San Antonio.
Yeah, we like to say 2 things. We like to say that we have to do things differently. Otherwise, right, when I come to a school that's more open, we don't have the bells, we don't have the hallways, right? It's about giving kids the space in order for them to learn with intentionality and the purpose. And then we have to do things better because why go to a different school if we can't offer you a better experience? And so those are the things that we really try to pride ourselves on, is doing it differently, but also doing it better. We're not just trying to be different, right? It's not a niche school. It's about really trying to find the purpose, reimagine education. And I've said it before, when we say reimagine education, what we really mean is get back to the intentionality of what education was supposed to be about, of developing a whole person, and not be about developing just a specific skill, be it a test-taking skill or be it a certain niche. It's great that there's STEM schools. It's great that things that are out there, but we want for a kid to leave us having as many different opportunities as they want to, because we do not know what the world's going to exist or what it's going to look like. So a kindergartner in the third or a third grader right now, they have the right to leave us 10 years down the road and be able to say, hey, I'm prepared to go do whatever new is available because I've had the skills that Anne Frank's instilled in me that I can learn anytime, any place, anywhere, and I can flip that and use that to be a successful citizen.
Yeah. No, that's, yeah, like you said, it's being intentional about it, doing things differently, reimagining what education can be. And I think a key part of reimagining things is the inquiry-based learning model. I think the way you described it to me is like how, little kids are asking like, why is the sky blue? Right? And they're full of questions. And it's important for us as adults to not get impatient with that, but to like, encourage that and develop that. And you guys have made an art form out of encouraging those kinds of questions. So I was wondering if you could talk more about, the guest post that you wrote in the summer for the summer learning guide. That was more like how families could apply it at home. But I wonder if you could, today talk more about like inquiry-based learning, how you do it on campus and how you kind of adapt it to different ages.
Yeah, so that post that we wrote during the summer, right? It was for at home, but it's really what we want to use here at school as well. Because again, we want for education to be able to transform from one place to another without kids having to say, "Oh no, I'm at home now," right? We just want you to be able to kind of be, and one of those biggest things. And any teacher, any facilitator, any educator will tell you that over the last 2 weeks when they were home over Christmas, there was a question that popped up, right? We all went down some rabbit hole. We either went through reading or we went on YouTube or we got caught up in streaming a show on Netflix or Apple TV, right? Like, so and then you find yourself asking questions about, well, when is the next season going to come out? Or when is this going to happen, right? But learning how to learn and explore that information. And so what we really want to focus on here at Anne Frank is those natural curiosities, giving kids the skill set. And so a lot has gone into of do we allow kids to create their own questions, or do we create a more guided question for them? And again, it depends on what it is we're wanting to accomplish. Early on, it's about giving that guided question so that we develop those skills. And that goes back into we're a standards-based grading school where we focus on what is the kid knows, and then what is it that a kid can do, and ultimately what is it the kid is becoming. And so in our inquiry model, what we're really wanting to establish is getting kids to take that knowledge and being able to do something with it. And I feel like that's something when we, again, talk about reimagining education, it sounds very simple, but it's a piece that we miss inside of traditional education right now is, okay, so I know all of this information. What am I going to do with it? And we started the year off this year during professional development where I led with a story about watching a YouTube video over how to change sinks inside of my house. And I can tell you how to do it. But after 8 hours and 15 trips to Home Depot, what I can tell you is that there's people out there that can do it better than what I can. And luckily, I knew a couple of those people. And so it's not just about knowledge, right? It's about being able to do things with that knowledge and ultimately becoming somebody that is resilient, that is determined, that is humble, that learns how to work with other people. And, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole, so you can stop me anytime, Inga, but that's one of the things when we talk about like what's going to be a change in the pandemic.
Right.
Well, the biggest change is how we interact with people. So as we all start interacting more through technology, what we miss is a lot of those organic conversations, a lot of that relationship building, right? And so one of our concerns is that everything's going to become bottom line based, where you get on and you work collaboratively on a project, but it's all focused on that project, and it's not focused on, hey, you've got 2 kids and I've got 1, and this is what they were doing, and right, and like all of the things that really matter in developing that human connection. And so what we want to teach students here at Anne Frank is why that extra piece is really valuable inside of being successful as we go forward.
Yeah, well, that goes to like like for SA Turtle Moms, like like as a nonprofit leader, like we're always adjusting our strategy. We've had to do that quite a bit because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. But I mean, one thing that we always try to keep in mind is like it has to be purposeful, and it has to like in everything we do, we have to also give back, and we have to like take care of our people in the organization, and that like so it's important when I'm doing planning, like to not just always be like, oh, we want, this many people to see our posts on Facebook or whatever. But I mean, that's like, we have to keep those numbers, because we're doing our job. But, but always asking, are we developing our people, and are we doing this for a good purpose, like in ways that gives back to the community? And, that's just, yeah. And I think that, yeah. And the pandemic puts that in relief, because, if we feel like we're living in a crisis, then do we just only focus on those bottom line things and the things we can quantify? But, but there's a lot more to it in terms of, making life meaningful, but also like just really for any kind of project to succeed, is that if it's a team effort, then, you're not dealing with robots, you're dealing with human beings.
And I kind of staying on the point of the enrollment piece right now, right? Like, what kind of family are we looking for, or what type of family is that right family for us? It's that family that's looking for a connection. It's looking for living life together. It's looking for having that balance between high expectations academically, as well as turning around and saying, hey, there's some learning experiences that have to take socially and emotionally to make sure that high academics can be transferred over into being successful in college or the workplace, right? And so we definitely are focused on increasing our academic rigor, but at the same time, not at the expense of moving away from that social emotional aspect of caring about kids, caring about families. And I think that's one of the things the pandemic has really allowed for us to show is we are about our students. We are about our families. And so we don't treat every family the same. We don't treat every student the same. We turn around and we do what people need based off of circumstances and situations without losing who we are. And I had a conversation the other day with a parent, going along with the lines of, I'm not used to doing the recruitment piece, right? Like, you've been with me since I think I met you like the third week on the job or whatever, right? I'm not used to that recruitment side of it. But what I'll tell you is this: I'm not going to tell somebody what they want to hear in order to get their kid to come to school here. What I'm going to tell you is what we believe in, what we're about. And then you as a family make that decision over whether or not we're the right place for your child to come to school. And so if you're looking for a place where your kid's going to come in and belong and find joy and be great, then we're a great spot. If you're looking for a place to where your kid's going to be sit down, be quiet, don't talk, stand in line, catch a bubble, put your hands behind your back, right? Well, then we're not it. And I'm not going to pretend like we are, right? And so we want for kids to learn how to manage themselves, to reach self-mastery through self-management, right? How do you turn around and develop those skills to where when things aren't going well in the world, I can refocus myself and dive back into it. When I receive a bad grade, what do I do next? And we don't stay focused on the grades. We stay focused on the process of learning, which gets us back into the inquiry. Ultimately, at the end of the day, life is an inquiry. And life is just about turning around and saying, we did this well today. How do we do it better? We didn't do this well today. How do we do it better? And continually exploring that with each other and having fun while we do it, and that's a big piece of it.
Yeah, that was kind of, I'm diverting onto kind of me personally, like over the break, right, since we're talking just after coming back from holiday break, and part of what I spent my time doing was asking, like, what am I curious about, like and then try to ask, like, what can I do safely until, right, because like I'm at a low priority for vaccines, so it's going to be a few months before my dad's getting his in a week or two, so I'm really excited about that, but it's going to be a few months where I get it. So what can I do? Because like I love finding new places, I love exploring things, but I need to find things that I feel are safe for everyone in our pandemic pod. So and so that was what got me excited. And like, so at the beginning of break, I felt kind of worn down and a little discouraged. And then by the end of break, I had this notebook with ideas and things I wanted to do, and like people who are who want to, like, hey, do you want to come with us? We're going here, and and talking to the kids about it, like places they wanted to go, and putting dates on the calendar, and so we went from this feeling of being kind of lost, lacking purpose, which I feel like is something that I think there's a lot of that feeling in the culture. And then I think the pandemic made it worse. And I think one of the things that's so valuable about what Anne Frank is bringing to the education world is providing a counterexample or kind of a countercultural movement about let's look at education in a different way. And then like I was asking myself a question of like, okay, what am I curious about? What am I excited about? What places do I want to see that I haven't been to yet? Or what place did I love going to, but I want to see what it looks like in the spring instead of the fall? And then, once we got those ideas and we did it as a family, we got really excited about it. And now, the next 6 months looks a lot brighter than it did, maybe when in December. But
I can tell you went back and read the blog post, right? And what we call that is activation, right? So you activate those questions and you don't necessarily go where you thought you were going, right? Like you didn't sit down with saying, hey, I'm going to end up with this trip. I'm going to end up in this spot, right? You start down and you start wondering, like, what is it that I want to know? What is it? And then you have the skill set to turn around and turn that into a learning experience. And that's, we overcomplicate it sometimes, right? We overcomplicate the idea of what we're trying to do. And then we minimize the effort and the intentionality that it takes. It's difficult to do what we do. It's difficult to be on the front end of change. It's difficult to turn around and say, hey, I'm going to give a seventh grader some space to where they can not feel like they're trapped in a room and they're going to sit down and they're going to explore something. And they're going to have a true goal, right? A true expectation of what it is that they're going to have at the end, but we're going to allow for them to struggle their way through this piece and this process. And so, that activation piece is key. But like you said, it happens naturally. And so when we're intentional inside of our educational process of saying, hey, if this is going to happen naturally, how do I leverage that to really get that excitement and really get that engagement inside of a student and get them going in the right direction?
Yeah, I think part of like as I was trying to get my kids involved in this planning process, they would just say, well, I don't, I'd be like, where do you want to go? Or where did we go last year that you want to go back to? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, that's not working, and then I'm like, okay, here's this book, flip through this book, right? Or go, here, let's get some YouTube videos. Let's find, because there's all these like aerial drone videos. We watch so many you find 4K aerial drone videos of all kinds of cities around the world. I'm like, okay, we're not going there yet. We have to save up for that.
But apparently there's some place in Switzerland that has a roller coaster going down a mountain that I want to go to at some point. Oh. I don't know where it is, but I saw the video and I will end up there at some point in time.
Goals, gotta have goals, right? Yeah. And okay. I think one thing that you give the example of you go to a seventh grader and you set them forth on this project, and then you have to step back and you have to let them see what, then you see what happens. And sometimes they fall flat, right? But that's the resilience piece, right? Is if they, don't do the work, then they don't have a result, right? They don't have anything to show. But you can talk to them and find out where in the process was the breakdown, right? And then help them get back on track. And then at the end of it, they have this more robust process for problem solving that they can use in life. Whereas they're not this sheltered, creature who's never made a mistake. And then they hit college or they hit their first job and then they don't know how to recover.
And that's where moving away from traditional grading has really benefited us this year, right? Is we're able to turn around and allow for a student to struggle. And again, when we talk about the intentionality behind what it is that we want to accomplish, as a parent, I want my kids to make all A's, right? No parent is ever going to say, I'm good with a D, right? I want my kid. However, in learning, I want my kid to struggle. So how do you create a situation to where a kid can make an A, but yet still take risk? And that's not something that traditional education allows, because if I take a risk and I fail, it hurts my GPA. And if it hurts my GPA, it hurts my scholarship and it hurts my scholarship, right? And there's all of these consequences that goes along. And what happens is parents start looking at their checkbook of how am I going to pay for this or how am I going to provide this? And that stress naturally makes it way down to kids. And then we find kids not wanting to take risk and not wanting to take challenges. And then we say, well, hey, But we have to look at that root cause. What is the root cause? And I know it sounds overly simplistic, but that root cause is grades. And it's when we put a value on what you know and not what you can do. And what I want for a student that maybe shows up and doesn't know anything, but within 3 weeks can do everything, right? So, I want a kid that doesn't always know exactly the right answer, but can go and find the right answer or find enough wrong answers to develop a new answer. And so it's critical that not only do we talk about things, but we design a system that allows for those to become true practice, right? And so that's where we are right now at Anne Frank is we're in the midst, because the other thing I want to be, we don't change on a whim, right? It's not like we're just going to change direction. So we have to be careful when we say reimagine education is our goal, that we're not constantly looking for something different, right? What we are always going to be rooted in is our inquiry. What we're always going to be rooted in is making sure that students leave with opportunities. So that is where we're going to be rooted. And then we're working on developing a system that does those things to the best of our ability, right? And are constantly moving towards creating that. So reimagined education isn't as catchy as reimagining, but we have an image of what we want the education to look like, right? We have a vision of what it is. Now it's just about turning around and developing a system to execute that on a daily basis.
Yeah. No, I think it's so important because it's I hope that as more people learn about Anne Frank, it leads them to question, why things are done the way they are, right? Like why so much emphasis on grades? Like why does it feel like a zero-sum game? And why do kids feel like that their natural tendencies to ask questions is being discouraged? And why does the school environment have these artificial constraints that you don't find, like adults aren't treated that way? So, can the kids learn a different set of norms so that they're productive and happy, but not, and it's not, they're working hard, but it's just that they're driven by their curiosity, not by, some kind of threat or some kind of pressure about how they're evaluated.
Yeah, and just to kind of give you a little sneak peek and where we're headed is it's about less, not more, right? And so like at a high school level, that freshman year, well, the state tells us that you take Algebra 1 test, right? Well, then let's make freshman year about being a mathematician. And let's turn around and let's make our science class about the math piece of science, right? And connect our Algebra 1 and connect that. And everybody's always called it cross-curriculum. Well, it's not about going cross-curriculum. It's about being intentional behind what it is that we're wanting to accomplish. Inga, you have a calling to make Charter Mom San Antonio the best it possibly can be, right? Well, that's what you focus on inside of that because of the fact that you care about your family and you care about that piece. And so you have a single focus. We ask kids to show up and we ask them to focus on about 12 different things. And then we go, hey, I don't know why you can't ever stay focused on one thing. We don't create a system to do that. And so, again, we want to be intentional and say, yeah, you've got to take these courses, but do you have to take them in this order? Or can we be more intentional about how we design the order so that it builds on each other going forward? And so you leave as a freshman being a mathematician and as a sophomore being a scientist and as an 11th grader being a historian, so that when you're in the 11th grade, you can actually put your thoughts together and produce things that are an end product that everybody goes, hey, I'm a well-rounded kid, a well-rounded young adult that can go and be successful. And so, again, I love what you said. We do want to be counterculture from the standpoint of we don't want to do things because it's trendy. We want to do things because it's intentional and because it's going to have a better impact and a better influence on students and families going forward.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm so glad. This is why like the videos I feel like are so important because they add so much more than just like something on a website. Like people can hear from you about the vision. I know you're really good about communicating like on the YouTube channel, and you communicate with your current families about changes. And like I remember last summer you were communicating a lot about or even like in the spring like about the pandemic and what the plan would be when schools reopened. And so I was wondering if you could kind of update about, like how things have worked out, because you gave families a lot of different choices about, they could be on campus runs for most of the time. They could have the kids home most of the time. And there was sort of these in-between options that they could choose, right? They could have their kids on campus being supervised at certain times. So how's that worked out?
There's a huge piece of fear or anxiety of the unknown, right? And so we started off by saying we were going to send out a survey and have parents tell us whether or not their kids were coming that next week or they were coming on that Monday, Tuesday. And I remember as we first started talking about this with y'all, and everybody was like, I just don't know how you're going to do it weekly. My superintendent was like, I don't know, Justin. I don't know. This is, like, how are we going to? And here's the deal. We have some unbelievable facilitators that they have really set up with the idea of we're going to teach those that are in front of us and we're going to reach those that aren't, right? And so that's kind of been the philosophy that's been taken is that when kids walk in the door, they're going to have a better educational experience than students that are remote. We don't hide it. We don't try to sugarcoat that piece. Students that are at home are going to be safer, right, than students that are at school. But that was true prior to the pandemic as well. And so those are the balances and the choices that families have to control. What you decide as a family doesn't impact what we do. You make those choices for your families. You control what's in the best interest of your family. And then we turn around and we serve you based off of the choices that you're making. And it's gone really well. I'm not going to tell you that it hadn't been challenging or it hadn't been difficult. We're in the same boat as everybody else of students that are remote. It's hard to keep them engaged consistently and constantly, right? Why? Because there's not the connection. There's not the connectivity. We know that parents have asked for, hey, can we have more designated times where people meet? Well, no, not really, because of the fact that that's not it's not going to develop what they're looking for. And what they're looking for is that connection that happens when we're together, right? And so that's only going to happen at school. We did build in to where we did digital learning, which means that students that are on campus are also working digitally, as well as the students that are remote the month of December, because we knew cases were going to go high. And what happened, right? Cases went high. We are easing our way back in. So we're going to have students back on campus on the 11th. Why? Because we knew there was a thing called New Year's Eve and that people were going to go to a party, right? So we act like all of these things are like mysteries, but they're right there in front of you. You know what's going to happen. Let's look at it. Let's be prepared for it and let's start working. And so we're hoping on the 11th that we get more students back than what we had in November. And we hope that students are here. And we haven't had any cases on campus of students with COVID or with facilitators with COVID. We've had students that have had it, but they've all been off campus during that time period. And so tomorrow we might have 15. I hope not, but right, we don't control that piece. But our measures that we're taking are being successful. Our families are enjoying the control that they have. Our facilitators are enjoying the job that they're doing. And the one thing that I can tell you is, to a person, our facilitators are probably the happiest teachers I'll say in the nation, right? I'll go out there. I'll be bold in the nation, because of the fact that we care about them. They have Fridays where students work digitally, which allows them to do the multiple types of planning that they have to do. We listen to them. When it comes report card time, we build in an extra day for them to work on report cards and get those things out, because of the fact that we know we're increasing stress. We need to increase support where we increase that stress. And we've been able to do that with our facilitators, and it's been very successful. And our families seem to be having a good experience with it as well.
Yeah. No, that's key. You have to shore up all sides of the situation, right? Making sure that the teachers feel supported and they get, like you said, get the prep time that they need, because, they're having to juggle, different platforms and right on campus, off campus. Yeah. And if the teachers are able to do their work well, then it does make it more meaningful for students.
Right.
Even like you said, knowing that, kids who are on campus, they're going to have more opportunity to build a relationship and build connections with the facilitators. And if the kids are learning from home, they're safer during the pandemic, but it's harder to make connections and build relationships. But the facilitators are still going to try to reach them using all the tools they have.
Yeah, and they do, right? They really get after it. They really work hard. They're calling. We have our teams meetings. We have everything that's there. It's just not. It's not the same. It's not the same, and I don't think anybody needs to pretend like it is, right? Like it's just not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I want to make sure that before we close out that we give parents. Okay. So, the last thing I want to talk about is like how parents get more information, how they enroll. But before that, I want to mention that there's an event related to as part of Dream Week. And so I was wondering if you could talk more about the Dream Week event. So it's a virtual symposium, right?
Yeah, so we are extremely excited to be part of Dream Week in San Antonio this year. As everything else, we hoped it was going to be here on campus and we were going to be able to show off our beautiful campus and show off our wonderful students and what they do. But we are going to go virtual with that. Our Dream Week, we are focused on inquiry to impact, right? So how do we take our questions and how do we make them impactful into the world with a strong focus on that life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And so that's going to be our theme as we're getting prepared for that. And so we'll have a video that will be able to go out that we'll push out. I'm not quite sure how long that video will be, but K through 12, we've got students that are working on highlighting what Anne Frank life, pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, right?
Yeah. Well, that's great. And I want folks to know, I recommend go to the Dream Week website or, Google for it, and it's on the event calendar. So, I think it's great that Anne Frank is participating in Dream Week because it's, it's something that it's across the whole city, and it's kind of keyed in with it's always the same week as Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, right? But
yeah, and so here's what I want y'all to hold us to, right? Please come back. Please watch that video, and then in there, make sure that it's about students. Right? It's not going to be about adults. You're not going to see me. Probably won't see me at all. You're not going to see our facilitators, right? It's going to be led by students. It's going to be run by students because we believe, regardless of the age, the students are the ones that we want to give that voice to be heard. So, hold us accountable to that. If you come back and you see me all over the video, know that something happened. But we want it to be student led. We want it to be student driven.
Yeah, that's really important. That's what helps them grow, right? Is giving them the platform. Yeah. Well, good. Okay. Well, I want to talk about so I hope that the families who've been watching this video and reading the blog post that they, some of them get curious. Like you said, it's not for everybody, but for the ones who think, that sounds like what I'm looking for, right? I want my kids to grow in independence and resilience. I don't want them to get hung up on grades. I want them to be able to try and fail and try again. And
now tell me you can say all of that and then say it's not for everybody, right? You can argue with that, right? Like that is what education is supposed to be, right? Now the question is, do you have the courage to come and see, right? That's what we want is we want for you to have the courage to come and see because everything that you just got finished saying, nobody logically can argue with, right? It's just a question of, do you have the courage to allow for your child to experience that? And then as a family, do you want to have a voice? Do you want to have a spot? And so you do that. I know we've got to wrap this up, Inga, but you do that by going to AnneFrankIA.com, right? And you start off by filling out an inquiry. We'll have you come do a tour. And if you want to enroll without doing a tour, that's great. Let's do it, right? But if you want to come and tour, we encourage everybody to do so because we don't have hallways. It is different. It is going to be a little bit of a learning curve as far as we are going to be intentional in everything that we can do, right? But ultimately, it comes down to creating an environment where kids can belong, find joy, and be great. Where families can belong, find joy, and be great. And that's what we want to stay focused on and stay committed to.
Yeah. You mentioned tours. So are folks able to come on campus, but maybe after hours when there's no students? on campus?
We actually, with mask, right, and going back and what we do, right, is we stay committed to what the CDC says. So anybody over the age of 10, and in our situation, anybody fourth grade and up, because there's some 9-year-old fourth graders, they get a little tricky, right? So anybody fourth grade and up is wearing a mask at all times on our campus. And so come up. We'll ask that you wear a mask. We'll give you a tour. We'll show you around. Ms. Payne has been doing those throughout the year. And then the other piece of it that I would tell you is our spots are going to be limited this year, right? We have a great enrollment this year, and we are anticipating a large percent of that students, about 90% of those students returning next year, based off of the information that we're currently receiving. And so we're going to have limited spots. And so make sure you get in there for the lottery. Make sure that you come for the tour. Make sure it's a space for you, because one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we're getting people that are committed to the process of coming all the way through, right? Mm-hmm. So we are not, and you tell me to be quiet at any point in time, but we are not in this to have 1,700 students come to Anne Frank. We will never have more than 450 to 460 students at Anne Frank K-12. We are about creating an environment where kids, their names are known, they're able to belong, they're able to find joy, and they're able to be great. So it's not about numbers to us. It's about people, and it's about an experience, and it's about doing life together.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm so glad. Like, I can try to explain it, but it's better to have you come on and talk about what this model is, how it's different. And, it does take a little bit of courage for a family to say, we want something different. Like, we're not satisfied with maybe the conventional way things are done, but like, we want kids to find this community where they belong in, where the parents can be part of the school community. And then learning is joyful, and people are always asking questions and getting to explore.
Yeah. And if you don't mind, one little selfless plug right here, right? This is my promise to you, right? Is that this little dude here comes to school here. You can have this smile. Show him the smile. Yeah, there we go. You have that smile, right? But it's a family atmosphere of living and doing life together.
Yeah. But and we got a comment. Lisa says she's got a tour tomorrow. Isn't that great?
Well, perfect. We will see you. Miss Payne is doing that, and Miss Payne is doing a fantastic job. Rosa Payne takes care of all of our tours. She's doing a wonderful job. And so, Miss Curry, we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. And we'll. I know you're coming, so I'll make myself available.
Okay, and I'm just going to close with a reminder that the open enrollment period ends February 3rd. So, and that's the best chance to get the application in before the lottery. And like you said, for grades 1st through 12th next year, there's limited spots because most current students will re-enroll. So it's kindergarten where is the best.
I will tell you that we will take 35 kindergartners, right? Because we know that inside of just this world we live in, right? Not all of those 35 will show up. And so we'll take 35 kindergartners off of the lottery. But I will also tell you that we already have around 55 to 60 applications for that kindergarten spot, right? So even that piece of it is going to be competitive on the luck of the draw. I mean, I don't know how competitive that is, but on the luck of the draw of that 35 spots.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, I'm glad that the school is thriving, and it's been fun to watch it grow and, go down the treehouse slide myself. And I look forward to coming back and visiting campus again, and sometime in the future.
Well, come on, let's do it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Justin. Take care.
Bye-bye.